Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm really excited today to actually have a special guest join us. I've known Jorge, this is Jorge Gama. I've known him for many years, and he is one of the brightest minds that we have around. And so for him to say, yes, I would love to come on the show, love to talk and offer listeners information to be helpful, it was just a huge treat for us, and now we get to share it with all of you. So we're so glad he's here. The topic is dating after divorce and what's the next chapter. We did have a previous one with sex with your ex. We did get a lot of feedback from that. However, dating after divorce is a big one. This is a very common thing that comes up. A lot of people are trying to figure out how to transition through that, what that looks like, what should they consider. So Jorge is going to answer some of those questions, I think, today.
I would really think through.
And if I approach this, Jorge, more as a person who, like, maybe I'm interested in dating after divorce, I might ask you some questions like that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And you just kind of dig into me and kind of like get that information out there for them. But I think I might treat it more that way.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Sound like a plan to me?
Well, let me introduce him first. Jorge Gama is an LPC-S. So the S stands for supervisor. Jorge actually trains supervisors as well as being a supervisor. So you keep leveling up, man. I don't know how they, yeah. So you go to the next one. He is the owner and the clinical director at the Mini Clinic in Arlington, Texas, has a background in crisis intervention and founded the Mini Clinic back in 2012. He works with really all the mental health needs that you can think of in Dallas and Fort Worth. In 2017, he introduced the Restore outpatient program for adults with chronic mental health issues. And I just want to say that Restore, I know about Restore and the work that they do there. When clinicians can't seem, and Jorge, please comment on this, when clinicians can't seem to, they plateau therapeutically and don't really know where to go next with a client, but they know there's more to be done. But the client's not necessarily ready for hospitalization. We're not there. This is what Restore really captures, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. And part of what we do, our specialty is to help people not go into a psychiatric facility. And the way that we do it is we look at a model of health as opposed to disease. And so what is it that you want in your life that's different, that's healthy? How can we create that, as opposed to seeing them come in and saying, okay, so here's your diagnosis, here's what's wrong with you, here's what's going on, right? That's a disease model. So we look at it from a standpoint of health.
So you take the dis out of the e's, you get to the e's. I love that.
You're right.
Okay. Well, and it's true. It's what you guys do. And I can personally speak on this. At times I've plateaued with clients and I've reached out and said, hey, I want to send someone to you if you can evaluate the situation. And just the feedback I got from the client and the amazement I had with working with them, because they came back different. Like, it was the things that I knew I couldn't do in an hour session. You guys just completely unfolded the next chapter of their life. It was just a beautiful thing. So Restore, that's what that program is called. And it's an outpatient program for adults with chronic mental health issues. If you've had mental health issues for a long time, and you just don't seem to know what the next steps are, Restore is the program, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. Jorge also provides counseling, training, and coaching for other professionals across various sectors in Texas, contributing significantly to the mental health advocacy and care. What that basically means is Jorge really has done work all around Texas, not just locally here. He's here, thank goodness, but he provides work all over the place. And so eventually we're going to be spreading out into other states, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, looking at trying to make the biggest impact while we're here. And that's not just in Texas, but across the U.S.
I told you, can't keep up with you, man. You just keep leveling up. It's wonderful. So thank you so much. For you listeners, if you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. We can't wait for you to subscribe, get all the latest episodes. I am getting feedback from individuals that they're seeing there's a pattern as they follow, and they're gaining knowledge on every single podcast. So there's a lot to be offered to you. I hope you guys will stay up with us and stay to date. We don't want you to get behind, but we definitely want to make sure to keep providing you information to continue to help you. So if you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. Get subscribed and let's get moving on this thing with you. Other than that, we also would ask you to please rate our podcast. You know, the way I say it, if it's great, please let everyone know. Feel free to rate us. If it's not great, man, let me know so we can make some changes and do this better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always say, was it negative up, positive down?
That's right.
Right. So positive, tell everyone. Negative, come tell me. They can't do anything about it, but I can.
Yeah.
So let me know if I can do better. So that's wonderful stuff. All right. So let's get into this. Dating after divorce. What's the next chapter? Jorge, what do you suppose we should be considering maybe first when we think about dating in general, especially after a divorce?
Yeah.
What are some things we need to think about?
If we look at even before marriage happens,
Mm-hmm.
to try to prevent divorce, right? The first thing that we have to do is we have to date the person and get to know them for who they are. Oftentimes what I hear when clients come see me after a divorce,
Right.
is they said, well, I was dating this person because he or she was marriage material. And that's why I was dating them. And so when you go into a relationship thinking, are they marriage material? You no longer are getting to know them. Now you're trying to check off the boxes and say, okay, will they be my lifetime mate? And when you do that, you don't really get to know them for who they are. Now, in theory, once you get to know them and you believe them as they tell you and explain to you and show you about their character and their personality and their quirks, because we've all got quirks, right?
Yeah.
And that, by default, would answer the question if they're marriage material or not.
So what would we need to do? We're not trained, right? I'm going to ask it as if, I'm not a counselor. What do we, the community, need to consider to feel like we have enough information to really know the person?
Yeah. So first off, it's believing who they are. Some patterns that I hear consistently is we have an idea of who we want to marry, and then we have the person that we are dating, and then what we do is we put those on top of that person. So our filter is already created to make sure that this person fits in that idea of who we want to marry. And so I think it's really been able to separate those two and really just enjoying the process and taking their time through that.
So you suppose people are taking the approach of, I want to marry a person, I want to be married, so they go into it with that lens to make them fit into that box.
Yep.
Versus going, why don't you just learn who they are, enjoy them, let them show you who they are, believe them when they show you, right? And then see if they do fit, into the box. It's not is that what you're saying? Am I saying it wrong?
No, that's exactly right. It's very, very clean the way you said it is. Let their behaviors, let the patterns, right? I always say you got to judge the pattern, not the person.
Oh,
right.
Say that again.
Yeah, and you have to judge the pattern, not the person, because their pattern is going to tell you who they really are, no matter what they say or how they say it or how many times they say it. But the pattern is going to tell you who they really are.
Do you think people tell you who they are or show you?
I think they show you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they show you. Hey, we're all salesmen, right? When we first start dating, we were selling ourselves, right? Like put our best foot forward, right? This is a great
open the door.
Yeah, things like that, right?
You still remember.
Yeah.
I remember. It's funny. I actually had a client say this. They said, a red flag is a warning, not a challenge. And it's almost like we see red flags, and most of us are geared to like, I want to fix it.
Yeah.
I want to help it. And that's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But remember what they are.
Yeah.
They're warning signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. A red flag is not them inviting you in to fix them. A red flag is a problem.
Yeah.
And they may not think they need to be fixed or think they have a problem.
Right.
And so I've wondered if that sometimes happens with people too, is do you suppose that when people date, and I don't know this to be true, I'm asking do you suppose when people date, what they may be doing is trying to solve a problem internally in themselves through the relationship that they're dating the person for?
Yes. So the way that I've seen it, and this is just a pattern, when I talk to people that have been divorced once or twice or three times, typically it's like, it's bad luck, right? And I always think about, well, we got to look at your picker. What's up with your picker? right?
You call it a picker.
A picker, yeah. We got to look at your picker and see
Okay.
what's going on with that, right?
Yeah.
And so the common thread that I hear is there's something missing inside me that this person has. And so in my mind, if we are together, then I'll be whole, right?
Got it.
And so we have two halves or two perforated beings coming in to try to close the holes, but those holes are still there, right? And so you can't create a hole without you first being whole and then the other person being whole. Now that doesn't mean perfect. That doesn't mean that there aren't any problems, right? Doesn't mean that, everything's worked on. However, there is a level of health that's been created that you can bring into the relationship.
So how do people know when they're ready? You talk about these holes, and they say, how do they know? How do they discover this readiness?
I'll give you the counseling-ese answer, all right? Is when they've done their work, right? And so what does that look like? Doing your work really is looking at yourself and saying, okay, what was my pattern? What was my pattern in that relationship, right? And so people come in and they say, man, he or she was abusive. They took advantage of me this way. They were spending money like this. And it's like, okay. And so what was your part in that? Well, they lied to me. Well, they didn't let me, see the bank account. Well, they were having an affair and they were hiding everything. Okay. So did you at any time confront them? Did you at any time say, no, this is enough? This is a line of demarcation? Because if you didn't, then you're being complicit and you're being okay with the behavior that they're exhibiting.
So the non-response is almost, in some ways, like it was permissive. Oh my goodness. And that's sad. I think some people don't realize, like, I didn't like it, but I wasn't clear about the fact. It's old saying, clear as kind, as we say here, possibilities, being upfront with them on that. Oh my goodness.
When a part of that is being able to look at preferring short-term discomfort, right?
Yep.
Over long-term gain.
Say that part again. I want them to hear that.
So here, being able to have short-term discomfort, right, for long-term gain.
Right. And the discomfort being, we're just making the line clean.
Right.
Right. And do you think that's something they consider when they're going into their next relationship with dating?
Yes.
Like, should they be that upfront? Should I be like, hey, we're dating. Let me tell you my lines as we jump into this dating stuff. Or do you think that's something that comes up naturally as you date?
I think that when you start dating after divorce, you have to know where your lines are, right? And you have to know your blind spots and your weak spots because they're there, right? None of us are perfect. And so when you're able to understand that better, right, they're going to step on that spot. And here's what happens. Anger is one of those emotions that people go, oh, anger is bad. Anger is bad. Oh, let's do anger management. That's anger management. Who wants to do anger management? Let's do anger resolution. Let's figure out why the anger is there, right? But people, when they start into another relationship, they go, oh my gosh, I can't be angry, or I can't feel this anger.
Right.
But that's, a flag saying, okay, what's going on, right? That maybe there's this frustration or this irritability or this anger that's coming up. And how do we look at that? That's typically when a boundary is busted is when that comes up.
Got it. A boundary gets busted, it comes up. The emotions then take over. We view the emotion as negative.
Yep.
Versus it's really just there to give me a sign.
That's exactly right.
And that's the working on self part.
That's exactly right. And because what happens, what I hear is they'll push that to the side, or they'll say anger is bad, so I can't feel that, until they end up numbing themselves. And so the patterns get recreated, that picker, right, never gets fixed, all right, or never gets adjusted, and they bring the exact same person.
And that seems to be the common complaint, is people will say things like, I keep marrying the same type of person, not realizing it's them. It's not like they're attracted to me.
Right.
Somewhere in you, subconsciously, you're attracted to that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like a moth to the light. That's exactly right.
Man, if people could just recognize that,
yeah,
they could change the cycle of their relationships.
And again, that's where doing the introspection, right, doing the internal work is really what matters. Being able to sit down and say, okay, what's my pattern? What are the things that I have to change? And then really taking the time and energy to change those.
Right. So what are some of the ways to healthily do that, like with yourself, so that you're the best version of yourself going into the next relationship?
Yeah.
Still ways to do that.
So I think the first one is getting professional help.
Okay.
Right? Not necessarily because you're sick or because you're broken, but you're saying, I have a vision of who I want to be, right? I have a vision of what my next marriage is going to look like. So how do we create that? Let's start those steps to get there.
Yes.
Right? And then after that, when people start dating, I always say, you got to get your numbers up, but not your miles. And so here's what this means. What this means is you have to date more than just one person at a time.
Oh, I see.
Right? But you have to be open, you have to be honest, and you have to say, look, I'm back in the dating scene, or I'm new to the dating scene. And just so you know, like, I'm not just going to be dating you. I'm going to see other people.
Right.
Right. And as the relationship develops, I will let you know, like, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work out. Yep. Right. Or yes, this is working out and I'd like to be exclusive, but upfront and honest. And what I mean about not getting your miles up is, when you start getting sexually involved with people that you're dating, you no longer are able to see them clearly for who they are, right? Because now things change, our priorities change. And now sex is more of a priority than getting to know the person. On either side, priorities change. And then that process should be a clear, clean process. But once you involve sex into it, then it muddies the waters.
This is embarrassing to say this, but I heard the term body count.
Oh,
you heard that term?
I have.
Kids use it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck they meant.
Yeah.
I'm body count. I'm thinking,
how many dead body?
Exactly. My brain goes there first.
Yeah.
And then I get told, it's like, how many people have you had sex with? And what you just said is like, when people engage in sexual activity with a person, you're really changing the dynamic of getting to really know who that person is.
Yeah.
Like you've cut that line.
Yeah.
You're saying that you can't, I know you're not saying they can't have sex. What you're saying is be cognizant of where you are first.
Yep.
Second, when you're in a relationship, learn who they are. And one way to keep that line clean is be careful before you engage. Because once you cross that barrier in sexual activity, it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads into the next topic about boundaries, right? And so in order for you to be able to do that, is you have to know where your boundaries are.
Right.
Because boundaries are not about the other person. They're about you. And so people struggle with people pleasing or with not wanting to hurt people's feelings.
Right.
And so when they think about boundaries, they say, oh my gosh, I'm doing this to them.
Well, I want to elaborate on that. You said boundaries are not about other people, they're about yourself. What does that mean? Like, can you explain that a little bit more? What that means? Yeah.
So we go back to this line of demarcation, right?
Yep.
And so boundaries are about responsibility.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. And so you have to understand that from here, this way, it's your responsibility. And if we know who owns the boundary, we know who's responsible for the boundary, we know who can enforce the boundary, right? And so if it's from here to them, that's their issue, not yours. Or that's their thing to look at, not yours. And so what happens, though, is oftentimes when people struggle with boundaries, they don't go, oh, Michael's got a boundary, I'm not going to respect that. They go, how do I get under or over or to the side of it? And your job is to say, sorry, still a boundary. Sorry, still a boundary. Sorry.
It's like a goalie.
That's exactly right. Like a goaltender. Yeah, that's correct. Right.
Wow. And so is this why you're saying that we really need to look at ourselves first before engaging in dating so that we can learn where to be as that goalie for those boundaries that need to be in place?
Yeah.
Really to get the best version of us to the person we're dating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't know who you are, you'll acquiesce to who's presented in front of you.
What does that mean?
So what that means is if you don't know, I have people that come in and they say, I don't know who I am. When I'm at work, I'm this person. When I'm at home, I'm this person. When I'm with friends, I'm this person. Right. And when I'm over here. So what happens is they become a fragmented being. Right. And when you're fragmented, you don't know where you lose yourself in the roles or in the identities that you have created. Right. And so it's really important that you are who you are in each event. Now, are you the same person? Do you act the same way? Probably not. There's some similarities. Right. And if you cuss a lot at home, you probably don't cuss a lot in your meetings. Right. And if you do, then it could be, some issues there.
Sure.
Right. It's that kind of things. Right. But
sure.
Yeah. And so, here's just another one that just popped up. Right. If at home you do a lot of meetings, right, and then they're all Zoom, a lot of people during COVID, right, weren't wearing pants. Well, if you go to the office, I hope you're wearing pants. I mean, you're the same person, just one with pants, one without pants, right? That's what I the same thing. It's the same
When
thing.
you talked about that the other day about people doing COVID stuff, wearing gym shorts and a dress shirt. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, there's places where you can do that, but you're still you, right? Wherever you go.
When people don't really know who they are, they'll assimilate or acquiesce, as you said, to the person that they're with.
Yeah.
Does that mean that they become like the person they're with, or they take on certain things? Or do they just kind of succumb to who that person is so that they can make this relationship workable or whatever else, which means I learn less of self, like I'm getting further away from understanding me. Okay.
So yes on all of them. And what happens...
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And so here's what happens. What happens is when you're in a relationship like that, you present this person of who you feel you need to be to not be rejected. And so you're really not presenting as you are, because if you say, well, if they reject me, they rejected this persona of me, not really me, right? And so if you're able to present yourself as you are, right, and that gets rejected, sometimes that's really hard for people. But that's healthy because that helps us understand the range of emotions.
Right.
It helps us understand who we are. And it really helps us understand how we're going to heal or what pressure points we still have that have to heal as we go through this process.
So I'm coming out of a divorce. I'm going to start dating again. I'm in a position where I've been rejected. Maybe I didn't ask for the divorce. So there's that one.
Yeah.
Maybe I did ask for the divorce. Maybe I think it's all them. It's not me. But I don't want to repeat. Maybe that's the greatest fear I have going into the next relationship is I don't want to repeat that.
Right.
Right. I don't want to repeat the idea of being rejected. Right. But I don't want to repeat having to reject.
Right.
So are there the trust? How do I get back to a place of trusting myself or them or the process of the dating relationship?
Yeah. And so, something that you said, it was all them, right? Or it was all me, right? Or I chose the divorce, or I chose the divorce. The reality is there's two people involved in that process.
Yeah.
Right. And so even if you are one that did not want the divorce, but the divorce happened to you, right? That is a really great time to then look back and say, okay, what did I do? What was I complicit in that marriage, right? That this person, my ex-spouse, felt that it was okay to treat me that way, that felt it was okay, to talk to me that way or to do the things that they did. And then that's what you have to look at and say, okay, how do I now see those patterns and how do I stop them in another relationship or the red flags, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I make sure that I see those
Right.
and I'm aware of those and I believe those? And part of it is trusting themselves, right? And it's not one of the things that I hear, and they don't explicitly say this, but my clients are basically like, I have to be more perfect, or I have to do more right, or I have to be more better, right? And it's like, well, why don't you just be yourself? Right. And within that rawness, that vulnerability is really what's going to help bring somebody that's going to be able to really understand where you're at and respect where you're at.
That's probably the important part is, do you want someone to respect where you're at?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want them to respect the actual true version of you?
Yeah.
Or the version that you presented to them?
Right.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you a funny story. There was a gentleman I knew, he passed away, an older guy. And, he died of old age, but good friend of mine. And he taught me a lot of stuff, just life stuff, it wasn't therapy stuff or anything. Like, he wasn't even a therapist. But I heard this really cool story about him. So he'd been divorced. And one of the issues that always came up in his marriage was he loved to play golf. And it wasn't that they didn't have money. I mean, they had plenty of money. But it was one of those things that he just loved playing golf. It's one of the things he did. He played golf every week.
Yeah.
Okay. At least once a week, he played golf, sometimes more if he wanted to. But that was one of the things. It was his thing. It's his way to decompress and everything. He had a pretty stressful job. And his wife always had an issue with him. And anyway, long story short, he ends up getting divorced. He meets his second wife. Now, I never knew his first wife. I just knew his second one. And he literally said, when he first started dating her, he said, look, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how this dating's going to go. I date because I want to have a partner. I want to get there eventually. And they're going to take their time. He goes, but I need you to know something. Regardless of who I marry next or what that looks like, I play golf once a week. and I'm going to continue to play golf once a week. Is that going to be a problem for you?
Yeah.
That I have one day. It's my day and I play.
Yeah.
And he goes, if it is, I need to know that now, because that was a huge issue in my past relationship. And his wife, this is the one he passed away. His wife still is alive. She never once, and I think they were married like, for what I've heard, about almost 40 years. She never once gave him any crap about playing golf once a week. And I'm going back to, he was that clear before. And that's him learning from his previous dating relationship. Like, this is something I know I'm not going to do different.
Right.
And I'm wondering if when you're dating someone, if you know something about yourself, like you might be a big jerk, okay? And you might approach things really bad, and you might never want to work on it. You think everyone just misinterprets me, and you might just tell them, like, I'm not a really good conversationalist. I'm kind of a jerk sometimes, or I come off as such. I'm not trying to be, but I don't think it's really me, so I'm not going to really work on that. I just need you to know that that's going to probably happen. Like, we're going to get in tiffs, and you're going to see me as a big jerk, and they might look at you and go, thank you so much. I'm not interested in this relationship. But that's okay, because it's an authentic version of you. You're not going to change it.
Right.
So you might as well offer it to them. Now, if you're flexible there, I need to change, I need to be better, then let it be something you say, I know I need to work on this, and be honest about the workable piece of you.
Yep.
And maybe that's why they go to a therapist, is to go, where are you flexing? Where are you working on you?
Yeah.
Where are your inflexible pieces? You're like, man, I'm not changing that for nobody. That's just who I am to the core.
Right.
Now, we might look at his therapist and be like, yeah, but you're always evolving. Right.
Yeah.
However, they're not willing to change it yet.
Right.
You can't convince them to change it. There was a saying I read recently. It said something like, I'm trying to think of how, I'm trying to pull it on my phone and read it, because I'll say it wrong, but I got to pull it. If I don't have my phone, it says something like, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I think it's a Dale Carnegie statement.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so true. Like, you try to convince, like, you're dating, you try to convince someone to be a certain way or act a certain way towards you.
Yeah.
Later, it's going to come up as a problem.
Yep.
Because a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah.
And I just was like, man, that's so true even today, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess I said all that to basically say, do you suppose him being that clear, my friend, to his girlfriend, the time I play golf once a week, I'm not going to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Was that an appropriate way to do that? Or is there a different way you could have approached it, or said, how do you feel about me playing golf once a week? Or,
well, let's look at what it is. It's a pressure point. And so
write this down.
Past relationship,
Yes.
that created pressure on the relationship until the pressure exploded.
Yep.
Right. So if he's going into his next relationship up front, being clear, being kind, right, and saying, look, this is a non-negotiable, right?
Yep.
And his partner has the opportunity to agree and say, I'm going to take you with that. Like, you're worth it enough for me to put up with that. Right?
Wow.
Then yeah, that's clear. Being clear is being kind. Yep. I think that's a great way of looking at that.
And he knew his pressure point going in.
Yeah.
So he offered that to her and said, hey, I need you to know this.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I can accept that. And she did all those years, every week, man.
Yeah.
She just accepted it.
But that is a woman that did her work. And let me tell you why. Because if you're that clear, if you say, look, we're going to start, this dating relationship, but I need you to know that on the weekends I drink too much. And every once in a while I do some weed. And then,
Wow.
Sometimes on Monday mornings I need Coke to be able to make it to work.
Oh my God.
And the boyfriend or girlfriend says, okay, yeah, sure, not a problem. You do you, right? As the relationship progresses, right, maybe they're 2 years in, 3 years in, 4 years in, and now they're going, hey, this alcohol thing on the weekend is becoming a problem, right? Or, hey, this cocaine stuff in the morning, like, you're terrible the rest of the week because you're coming off of it, right? And so now it's kind of unfair to the person that was up front, because they're going, well, wait a minute, I told you this up front and you accepted it, and now you want me to change? Like, that's not being clear.
How often do you suppose that comes up in almost any dating relationship? There's a version of you that starts in the relationship, and we evolve as we, as none of us know. You can evolve to a better version of self, or not a worse version of self. Do you suppose it comes up pretty often in all dating relationships?
It does, and not just with drugs, right? I'm just using that.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Here's what happened, right? We're together, we're dating, everything's great, everything's fancy, everything's fun. We get married, right? Now there's responsibilities. Now there's a house. Now there's kids, right? Now there's payments. And so we are the ones that intentionally have to work towards this. And so, but it's the same thing after divorce.
Right.
Right? Because now we're talking about two families, right? In ways they're going to be blended together.
Got it.
And so as the families begin to blend together, there's going to be stressors, right? If there's other spouses involved, well, I don't like the way they talk to my kid. I don't like the way they redirect my kid, right? And so even within that, you and your spouse have to work together to be on the same page.
Yes.
Right? But now we're looking at two other spouses, right? That we have to work together to be on the same page moving forward.
Wow. It gets really like overwhelming. Convoluted, as you say. What I want to ask then, based on that, there's a point here that you were making earlier with me in this topic, which is when you introduce a new relationship to children or co-parenting or ground rules or things like that, what's a good way to do that in your dating relationship? Like when do you introduce the children? Do you talk about it up front? How do you approach this with the kids?
Yeah. So you do talk about it up front with whoever you're dating.
Okay.
I can't have kids, and I just want you to know that you're probably not going to meet them until I feel like we're headed somewhere more serious, right?
That'd be that line.
That'd be that line. That's exactly right. Until maybe we have talked about it and we have decided like, yes, we want to take that next step. So now we start introducing the kids little by little, right? Into that relationship for them to be able to create a bond. Because, and you know this better than me, and I'd like to hear what you think about this. I think sometimes the parents want the relationship to work out so much after divorce that now they want the kids to forcefully like the person that they're dating.
Yeah.
And now the kid feels like, well, wait a minute, you're asking me to choose, he or her over dad or mom. And that, creates turmoil within the kid.
We call it split loyalties. Yeah. So that's the term we use here at Better Possibilities is when the kids engage in split loyalty. And there's typically a pressure point where the kid feels this almost overwhelming responsibility to have to like this person because my parent likes them and they want their parent to be happy.
Yeah.
And so where it gets hard for the kid is the child typically feels the need to reject one to accept the other.
Right.
And so one of the questions that we used to ask here is, do you have to hate one parent to love the other one?
Yeah.
What do you think kids say when we ask that?
Probably oftentimes say yes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost get teary-eyed every time I hear them say yes, because I'm sitting here thinking this kid never has a win.
Yeah.
It's a double bind.
Yeah.
I can love one at a time. And so they might love one when they're really little and I'll love the other one when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
Because they have to split it. Makes sense. And so in dating, I've noticed that these parents will date and they'll come in proud. They'll say things like, my kid calls my boyfriend dad. My kid calls the girlfriend mom.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, how'd that happen? Because they just kind of nowhere. Well, they asked if they could call him mom. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Like there's something, like there's a way this kind of came into existence. It didn't just happen. And I understand as the adult how proud that might make you feel that they feel that comfortable with your partner.
Yeah.
However, it may not be appropriate.
Right.
Especially if they have one. Like they have a mom. They have a mom. Good or bad or indifferent, they have a mom. Right. Same thing, they have a dad.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to redo that. One of the hardest things I had happen, a stepmom came to me and she said, I've never been treated as a stepmom until I came here. Like she was mad at me about it. Because I had the parents come in the room and talk with the kid.
Yeah.
And had stepmom not come in. And she was just mad. And I said, thank you so much. I was actually thanking her.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for understanding. And she goes, I've never been treated as a stepmom ever in my entire life in existence with this kid until I met you. And I was like, are you a stepmom? And she says, well, yes. And I was like, oh, well, what does that mean? Like she was making it out as if I was treating her evil, like basically like the old Disney version of stepmoms, how bad they are, and not being inclusive. So I understood where she was coming from. However, I'm like, but you gotta know your role, man. Like you are the plus one. You're not the one.
Right.
And this kid deserves to have their parents in the room and experience their mom and dad, right? How they got here in the first place. So there's a lot of dynamics that get played out. And I think in the dating relationship, it's so important for people to remember, like what you said, there's a boundary.
Right.
And you said very clearly, you don't introduce your kids to this person right away. You talk about how the introduction is going to occur. Because the person you're dating may have kids too.
Yeah.
Like we want the kids to meet the kids.
Right.
Right. And so there's so many components to that. So can you elaborate just a little bit more on some of the ground rules that should be in place in regards to introducing relationships like children and things like that into your dating relationship?
Yeah. Well, and I think, kind of taking a step back is I think that conversation of dating probably has to happen with the kids before the dating starts.
Really?
Yeah. I think even the idea of dating, to see how they're reacting, to see how they're taking it,
Mm-hmm.
but also to give them a chance to maybe get upset and fizzle out and then think about it and maybe have that conversation. Because if you just start dating without talking to the kids or at least having a lead up, now the kids are like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here?
And let's be clear, you're not asking permission to date from your kids. What you're telling us, I'm keeping them included in the changes I'm making in my own life because they're going to eventually impact their life also.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah, not permission, but having some kind of like next steps. This is
Right.
what we're doing. This is where we're going. This is how this is going to happen.
Got it. So I'm gonna hit some highlights for everyone real quick. What I heard you say is if you're gonna start dating after divorce and you're gonna move into your next chapter, these are the things to consider. First, let's look at you, right? Look at where you are in the process, the pain points that you have. Learn about yourself when it comes to how you relate to others.
Yes.
Start there. Start with you, right? Start with you first. And get a therapist if you need one through that process. Know your pressure points. Know where those lines are for you so that you can present that fully to the person you're dating. And when you're seeing the person for who they are, believe them. Let them show you the red flags. We talk about that.
Yeah.
But people will show you who they are more than they'll tell you.
Yeah.
So getting to know them, like enjoy the dating process.
Yes.
Don't try to make them fit into the role of your parent, right? Got it. And then the next one I heard, kind of getting into this, is talk to your kids about dating before you start. If you have children and you're going to start a dating cycle and you're divorced, talk to your kids about it. And I think a lot of people fear the kids are going to go tell the other parent and then it's going to be a problem. Don't avoid the problem.
Right.
If the problem's going to be a problem, let it be a problem. Just be true to what is needed. Make the kids important in that process. You're not asking kids permission to date.
Right.
Right. You're just saying, I'm thinking of you also.
Yeah.
You're making it clear. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What did we miss, Jorge? If anything, we can wrap this up for our listeners. Is there anything else that would be super important to keep in mind or remember?
The only thing that I think I'm just going to put out there is the topic about seeing a professional counselor.
Okay.
Right. And yes, I'm a little biased because I am a professional counselor. But here's the thing. When you go to your friends, they love you. They care about you. They want the best for you. So friends typically don't have the ability to help you think objectively.
Yeah.
Because they're included in that dynamic, right? And so having somebody that is trained, somebody that can really look at patterns and diagnose patterns and treat patterns is what I would recommend.
Then how do they find you, Jorge?
They find us, you can look at our handle at mendingclinic.com, or you can go to our website, mendingclinic.com, and it's MENDING clinic.com.
What a great name for what y'all do. Mending Clinic. We put it together.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so great. And I will highly encourage you listeners that listen in regularly to us. I would highly encourage you, if you've been through this process and you keep going, you're going to counseling, you're kind of finding yourself stuck. These guys are phenomenal at talking to the people that have been stuck. They've been through services. They've been through treatment. I just can't get to the next level. This is the guy that literally levels up all the time. He can help you level up. I mean, that's what you do. You do that as a professional. So it's just a wonderful thing. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
It's such an honor.
we're honored. We're honored to have you. Please submit any questions you have on the link that's going to be in the bio, in our show notes. And we are starting to filter questions. We've had some come in, and we're going to be answering those in our future podcasts. So please send those in. You can find that link in the show notes. And I think there might be another place you can find that, but we'll look into it. Feel free to go to our website as well if there's anything else. We usually post everything on the website, but definitely in the show notes there'll be a link for you that you can submit your questions and we can ask on future podcasts. Please follow us on Instagram at Brighter Possibilities FC and on Facebook at Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling. We look forward to hearing and seeing you guys again. Soon we'll have some more information for them.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's going to be great, and keep moving forward.